Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with a slight difference with Rear Admiral Jingles. What's so different about today's World of Warships video? Well, it's kind of like an episode of The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, except with warships instead of tanks. And to begin with, this first segment is courtesy of Vermilion T, and that's him there, in his Dunkirk, French Tier 6 premium battleship. Before we go any further, there are a few things you should know about the Dunkirk. First, it doesn't have any torpedoes. Secondly, as battleships go, it's pretty quick. Thirdly, it doesn't have any torpedoes. Fourth, the side armour is on the weak side. Fifth, it doesn't have any torpedoes. Sixth, it's armed with 8 330mm guns. And finally, it doesn't have any torpedoes. Jingles, we can't help but get the distinct impression you want to make it absolutely clear that the Dunkirk doesn't have any torpedoes. Oh, you got that, did you? Right, okay, well I'm glad you got it. Pay attention to this Hatsuharu that's about to collide with Vermilion T's Dunkirk as they both, somewhat unsuccessfully, attempt to avoid this torpedo drop. Vermilion T's taken on the nose, which means he is flooding, and the Hatsuharu took one amidships, and you can see the flames coming from his smokestack indicating that his engine is out. To be completely fair at this point, if that Hatsuharu does not have last stand as a captain skill, then he's not going to be able to disengage from the side of Vermilion T's ship, but you can see that he's repaired his engines and he's still making no effort whatsoever to disengage. Still trying to shove a 35,000 ton battleship out of the way with his destroyer. Clearly not a student of physics there. So Vermilion T very politely asks him to turn, and then when he does, he equally politely thanks him for doing so. Now remember, just in case I haven't already mentioned it, the Dunkirk does not have torpedoes. Why is this important, Jingles? Well, pay attention to chat. What's your torps, jackass? But the Dunkirk doesn't have torpedoes. And how can you be in a Tier 6 destroyer and still have not yet figured out the difference between red torpedoes and white torpedoes? Or, while we're on the subject, green torpedoes, which he just unloaded 6 of into the side of Vermilion T's ship because he torpedoed you. But the Dunkirk doesn't have torpedoes. Oh God. Really? Did that really just happen? Yes. Yes, it did. No doubt you'll be absolutely shocked to hear that Hatsuharu finished the game with 0 damage done. Well, 0 damage done to the enemy team. And now we return you to our feature presentation. This is Marak 1 in the Scharnhorst, German Tier 7 premium battleship. This is a ranked battle, by the way, that's why there are only 7 players on each team. Remember that, 7 players on each team. That's going to be important later, and this battle isn't going to last very long at all. At the start of the match, during the countdown, the team had a quick huddle, and they all decided that they were going to go and head for Alpha. According to the Gneisenau on the team, Alpha is the best spot in ranked battles for defensive smokescreens, so everybody heads off in that direction. Except, of course, for the Shiratsuyu over there, who's already popped his smoke. Why? Oh, I don't know, presumably just for the sheer joy of generating smoke, and he's heading off to fight his own battle, alone and unsupported, down at Bravo, because while there is no I in team, there is, however, a me. And so he's off to die alone with all of his friends down at Bravo. On the bright side, he's not going to die immediately because the enemy team are pretty much doing exactly the same thing. 6 of their 7 ships are all heading to contest Alpha as well, with the exception of 1 destroyer who's going off to do his own thing in Bravo. I must add, however, that I'm not condemning that Shiratsuyu because he decided to go and do his own thing down in Bravo when the rest of the team agreed they were all going to head for Alpha. If he'd managed to get down there and capture Bravo uncontested, then fantastic, you know, it's all good for the team. Unfortunately, he fumbled his speed boost at the beginning of the match and accidentally triggered his smokescreen, so he's going to get down there without a smokescreen ready to use, and he's going to run into an enemy destroyer. and it's not going to end up too well for him. So yeah, he was just not destined to have a particularly good game. Meanwhile, back to where all the action is happening, over here at Alpha. Now, you may have realised that of the 14 ships taking part in this particular ranked battle, 11 of them have torpedoes. And Marak's spider sense is tingling, and yep, he launched his catapult fighter just in time, and he's picked up the enemy torpedoes, fired down the gap between those islands up ahead, possibly in an attempt to ambush any friendly destroyers that were trying to exploit the gap between those three islands. Meanwhile, further to the south, down at Bravo, it's actually being captured by an enemy destroyer who's just chased the Shiratsuyu clean out of the cap circle and is in fact pursuing him and shooting the crap out of him. Spoiler alert, he's going to catch him and kill him. Meanwhile, back up at Alpha, there's an enemy Fiji down there who's playing a very, very dangerous game with a Miyoko at Belfast and Marak's Scharnhorst. British light cruiser sitting broadside on to a Scharnhorst. I believe that's a paddling, is it not? The judges have just returned from their deliberations, and even the Russian judge agrees that that was in fact a definite paddling. Now things are going to get just a tiny little bit frustrating for the next minute or so. The Belfast up ahead has laid a lovely, lovely smokescreen. Marak's going to take advantage of it, but he just doesn't quite have the ballistics to get his shots over the island into that broadside Miyoko. In fact, even the Belfast that laid the smokescreen is having severe issues shooting over the island that he's laid the smokescreen behind. So the smokescreen in this position isn't really any use to anybody. Right now things are starting to get a little bit more interesting over here at Alpha. There's an enemy Nagato leading the charge of the enemy battleships straight out of that smokescreen on the far side of the island. We've got a Miyoko poking, putting some shots into him. I thought at first that the Miyoko was waiting to torpedo ambush him, but he's not quite that stupid. He would have to broadside his ship onto the Nagato's guns in order to do it. Marak's team very sensibly focusing this Nagato down before they switch their attention to the Scharnhorst, who's following not too far behind him. And the sea is just awash with torpedoes. Look at this. That poor Nagato is definitely bitten off a little more than he can chew. And Marak's pumping the armour piercing into him, but at that kind of angle, they're all just pretty much bouncing clean off. However, his secondaries are working him over, and they have set him on fire. And there's torpedoes flooding the sea in both directions. The Nagato, of course, now presenting a much, much better angle as he was forced to turn to avoid the torpedoes that were fired from the Shiratsuyu in the smokescreen. More torpedoes coming in from behind. Marak, of course, sitting inside the Belfast smoke, not detected. That Nagato has lost an awful lot of health, but where was the Scharnhorst who was backing him up? Then the smokescreen dissipates. I think it's only at this point that the Nagato realises just exactly how much shit he's in, and he's down. That's Marak's first kill. And there's the Scharnhorst. Now, for the moment, these two Scharnhorsts pretty much have it all to themselves, as the cruisers that are here with Marak are directing their fire at the Shiratsuyu over there, who's chasing down the friendly Shiratsuyu inside his own smokescreen. You can clearly see that the enemy Scharnhorst is ignoring Marak for now, and he's focusing his fire on the friendly cruisers to Marak's left. Marak lines his torpedoes up, and then a whole bunch of things happen at the same time. The friendly Belfast has sunk the Shiratsuyu that was chasing down the friendly Shiratsuyu, but not before he could get his torpedoes away and sink the Leningrad. But not before the Leningrad could get his torpedoes away and finish off that Scharnhorst, who apparently forgot he had torpedoes in the first place. But hey, at least he got his wish, and he managed to sink the Miyoko. So, 4 ships per team. But not for long, because it's all happening on the far side of the island over there, while Marak is a little bit stuck in the shallows here. They've just lost their Genizer now, and they've just lost their Belfast. So now it's Marak and the Scharnhorst, and a very, very badly damaged destroyer against 4 enemy ships. On the plus side, some of those enemy ships have taken a bit of a beating as well. Most notably, the enemy Fiji is still in one piece after that massive paddling he received earlier, and they're all on the other side of that island, just waiting to see who's going to be brave enough to poke out. So, Marak, have you taken your brave pills? You have? Oh, and you've strapped your man pants on as well. Oh, jolly good. Let's see what's going to happen next. Takes the corner wide because he doesn't want to run straight into a wall of torpedoes, but there's a smoke screen over there. Nobody on the enemy team can see him. It's around about now that somebody over there realises that they can't see anything coming around the corner of the island, and so they pop their radar. He's now detected. And here it comes. Fires his torpedoes into the smoke. Destroyer spotted, and as he aims at him, the smokescreen lifts, and that's when he finds 11 torpedoes in the water fired from an Akatsuki and a Fiji at a range of less than 3 kilometers. The Fiji eats one of the torpedoes that he fired blind into the smoke. He takes one on the chin, controls the flooding as the Akatsuki up ahead, who was initially heading in the other direction, suffers from a sudden rush of shit to the brain, turns around, swerves, and runs straight back into the path of the torpedoes that he just managed to avoid. Meanwhile, the friendly Shiratsuyu was making the most of the distraction, has managed to hit the Miyoko with at least one torpedo. The Miyoko, broadside on target, has been set on fire by his secondaries, but immediately puts the fire out and then rams that island just as he takes a citadel, which leaves him on perilously low health. Meanwhile, Marek's portside secondaries have just finished off the Bliskovice, but the Miyoko managed to get his torpedoes away, and that is pretty much it for Marek. Or is it? Because the last thing that happened before he chewed on those torpedoes was his secondaries set that Miyoko on fire again. Boom! Headshot! 5 kills, Kraken unleashed in ranked battles, which isn't too bad, because there's only 7 ships per team. Today's final clip is courtesy of CNW in the British Tier 7 non-premium cruiser HMS Fiji. He's closing the distance on not one but 2 enemy Gneisenau's, as this Gneisenau's attention is for the moment occupied by the Congo that he's busy shooting up with both primary and secondary gun batteries. And this does allow CNW to close to within 6 kilometers of the Gneisenau before he finishes off the Congo and is forced to turn his attention to him. It's going to take him a little time to swing his main gun batteries around, but he has already dumped some torpedoes in the water and his secondaries are opening up, and the Gneisenau's secondaries are not bad at all. This Gneisenau is nobody's fool. He's fully aware that there are torpedoes coming, he's managed to avoid them. CNW tries to swing the ship around to get the portside torpedo launchers to bear, but the Gneisenau sees it coming and he turns in towards him and threatens him with a ram if he continues on that course. With 2 of his gun turrets knocked out, CNW is in serious trouble if he can't bring his starboard side torpedo launchers to bear. Oh, hold on a moment, what's this? The Fiji apparently has a rudder. Scratch 1 Gneisenau, enter player 3. Another Gneisenau in a substantially better situation than the first one. He has almost all of his health remaining. Now, CNW is not the only person shooting at this Gneisenau. Then again, this Gneisenau is not the only enemy ship shooting at CNW either. There's another enemy ship, so far undetected, all the way down further to the south, who's also peppering him with long-range and surprisingly effective fire. Now remember, CNW has just emptied his portside torpedo launchers against the first Gneisenau, and those are the portside torpedoes fired by the second Gneisenau. So both of these ships now have their starboard side torpedoes ready to go. And for those of you who don't know the difference between port and starboard, it's these ones. CNW can now fire torpedoes out of this side of the ship, and the Gneisenau can now fire torpedoes out of that side of the ship. In other words, they're both set to torpedo each other. But the thing about torpedoes is they have to run a certain distance in the water before the fuses on the warheads arm and they're actually capable of exploding for obvious safety reasons. And so watch what he does. He passes as close as he dares to the side of this enemy ship to ensure that any torpedoes that ship fires are not going to detonate. Holds his own torpedoes until he gets around the side, a nice safe distance, and hey, if it's funny the first time, it's funny every time. That was absolutely beautiful. CNW in HMS Fiji. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.